This is me. In 2018, I dropped out of college, quit my job, and moved hundreds of miles away to play drums in a band. And what inspired me to do this was a now 16-year-old YouTube video that I watched when I was a kid. It was simultaneously the easiest and hardest decision I've ever made. So I want to show you the exact video that inspired me to pursue a life of passion instead of a life of safety and take the road less traveled. Without this creator, I would never know what truly living for myself felt like. So if you've ever thought about taking the leap for yourself, but you're too scared to do it, give me just a little bit of your time. You might just discover something inside you that wasn't there before. So when I was in middle school, my parents enrolled me in drum lessons. I hated them, so every day after school, instead of practicing, I'd rush home and go on YouTube for exactly 1 hour before my dad got home from work. I was watching everything, dude. Smosh, Early Achievement Hunter, even the smartest, most thought-provoking show on early YouTube. Is it a good idea to microwave this?
Whoa!
The mask! They do nothing!
2-decade-old spoiler alert incoming. It was literally never a good idea to microwave that.
Yeah!
So, humble brag here, I was naturally talented at playing drums, so I kinda got away with skipping my lessons. But drumming had already become a part of me. I had downloaded a new personality. I was always tapping out beats on the table, beatboxing under my breath. I was so annoying, dude. My family hated it. But I loved drumming, man. In those illegal YouTube sessions after school, I was watching all the drum covers that I could find. Most of them were just kind of okay. Nothing bad, of course. They're all talented people, but just not very exciting. Until one day, in a sea of other drummers, I came across one creator who was so effortlessly good at what he did that a full decade later, he inspired me through one video to drop out of college, quit my job, and move across the entire country to join a band. This video came out 16 years ago. It is an ancient relic at this point. It's old enough to drive. A buried treasure, if you will. But I've thought about it basically every single day since then. It quite literally changed the entire roadmap of my entire life. And now, I want to share it with you. Slip Slap. I'm SlappyPat, your cosmic tour guide into the old internet and early YouTube, and you all are my cosmic cadets, eager to learn about the mysteries of the GWW, the Galaxy Wide Web. World Wide Web is just a little too small nowadays for how much content gets made every single day. Every episode, I show you something old or super niche that means a lot to me, and I call it Internet Buried Treasure. And then all of you guys go, I don't really understand what Internet Buried Treasure means. And then I tap the sign. But it doesn't make a difference because none of you can read. So before we get into the drum cover itself, I need to tell you about the creator and how he inspired me to be a cool guy instead of a fucking dork. It'll give a lot of meaning to the rest of the video. After that, we're gonna watch it together and I'll show you exactly what makes this drum cover so much better than any other drum cover on YouTube. 16 years ago, 16 years ago, you guys, every day, for 16 years, I have thought about this video. Even among early YouTube adopters, Cobus was an anomaly. He was born in a small town in South Africa where internet access was barely getting off the ground and was super expensive. He was lucky to have the internet at all, much less internet that was fast enough to watch online videos so that he could discover YouTube in the first place and recognize its early potential. In his words, I can't remember exactly where I heard about it for the first time, but I remember finding out about YouTube before most of my fellow South Africans did. Mostly because broadband access in South Africa at that stage was very limited and very expensive, making it very difficult for a video sharing website to gain traction. I remember loving the idea of such an open platform, being able to post anything for the world to see. Which 20 years later happens to be exactly how I feel about YouTube too. So already, that was a monumental barrier to entry that he overcame. But what about his actual content? How was he gonna stand out amongst the thousands of internet musicians already making covers? Well, at the time, most people doing this were just kind of like setting up a shitty point and shoot camera in the corner of their bedroom and using that camera's unfiltered, super compressed audio that sounded like you were recording inside of a ventilation shaft. Most people just wanted to hit record and play along to their favorite songs, which is absolutely okay. However, Cobus did have access to drum mics and a huge basement in the local church and cameras that he could set up perfectly framed at crazy angles. Even at first glance, he had this air of authority, not in a demeaning way, in like a holy sh**, I'm about to get taught kind of way. It didn't look like some kid on YouTube. It looked like a professional DVD music course. And despite these seemingly insurmountable obstacles, the lack of internet, saturated market, the expensive equipment, everything came perfectly together for Cobus to succeed on YouTube. He beat the odds. But none of this would matter at all if he couldn't put up or shut up. And I swear to you, on Bonham's Amber Vista lights, Cobus could put up. Cobus had the sauce. He was that guy. I can play myself. Hell, I can do better than play. I can perform. But even I am still just hitting wooden boxes with wooden sticks. When Cobus drums, he sings. Cobus and I have something in common spiritually. We both learned by ear. Cobus never took a single lesson, and I skipped all of mine, but we both absorbed it spiritually anyway. In fact, years later, he's gonna put out his own entire course on how to learn how he learned.
He had no experience, no formal training, and couldn't read a single note of sheet music. Having spent years perfecting his method, finding out what works and what doesn't, Cobus has finally put together a complete and comprehensive training system that shows exactly how to play drums by ear.
And it's not like anything that you've ever seen. When you are taught music, like in a classroom setting, it's put in front of you with notation, and there are rules and instructions to follow. A piece of written music is actually just a recipe, and you can put that recipe in front of anyone, teach them how to read it, and they will be able to replicate it as written. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. There needs to be some way to communicate this stuff and teach music in a widely accessible, standardized way, and even I learned this way myself when I was starting out. But here's the thing. Learning music on paper is like following one specific recipe to bake a cake, and then only being able to make that one type of cake that one exact way as long as you're following the recipe. And in contrast, learning by ear is like being able to look at a finished cake and then having that unlock every single recipe for every single type of cake in your brain, seeing all possible ways to get to the end result of baking a cake, even if all the recipes are entirely different. It's just instinct. It's impossible to accurately define. But when I saw Cobus play, I knew immediately that he and I understood each other on a primal level, deeper than any words could describe. I had never felt that before. He was unlike any other guy making drum covers. It wasn't just a one-to-one transcription of the original beat. He was singing with the drums. They were his voice, and he was as vocal and inflective and emotional with the drums as my voice is speaking to you right now. It wasn't like he just played drums to a song. It was like part of the song was missing until he filled it in. He had flair, he had chops, he had the sauce, and every time I thought he would run out and repeat himself eventually, he never did. He was taking cheap pop songs and turning them into art. He was putting out covers of songs that already had amazingly creative drums and then improving on them anyway, somehow. And then one day, a day just like any other day, he put out a cover that surpassed even himself. I have never forgotten how his playing made me feel that day in July of 2009. This one video taught me that, to me, real music is more than just notes on paper. It exists in the moment, in pure expression, so far removed from structure and planning that even you wouldn't know what was coming out of your hands until it happened. You can play something so insanely creative and inspired and interesting and be surprised yourself that it came out of you. To me, real music is a flow state that you live in without earthly awareness, just yourself and the sound. This video taught that to me in all of 3 minutes and 44 seconds. A decade after Cobus released this cover, I would get a phone call. I was living in a sleepy college town, going into my last year of school, working a bullshit job and living with a partner who wasn't good for me. I answered the call, and I listened as my friend told me he needed a drummer for a debut show. He had quit his job, recorded an entire album, and wanted to play shows with it. I told him I needed some time to think about it. You know, my drum kit had gotten dusty with lack of use. I was literally about to start the last classes I ever needed to take in my entire life in just a few days. And my friend lived hundreds of miles away from me. However empty and unfulfilling my life was here, giving it all up felt like starting over. It pretty much would have been. There is a lot more to this story. 6 years worth of memories, huge successes, and some of the worst moments of my entire life. Maybe one day I can tell it to you in greater detail, but for now, I will leave you with this. I hung up the phone and sat down to consider my friend's request. I glanced around my shitty apartment, looked at my work schedule, reread the syllabus for my capstone project, and gazed at my partner's dirty laundry in the corner of the bedroom. Then, I pulled out my phone, and for probably like the 200th time in my life, I watched Cobus's drum cover of My Life Would Suck Without You by Kelly Clarkson. He was everything that I wanted to see in myself, learning by ear and instinct, living so purely in the moment that even he didn't know what was coming out of him next. I looked at my safe, predictable existence, and I also chose to give up knowing what was coming out of me next.
You just made the best move of your life there, bro. We can't wait to have you drum with us. So we are super jacked. We're super jacked to have you, bro. And we will start Thursday night. I will see you then. And tomorrow, if you're free. Oh, yeah, you said you're quitting Thursday. So we will see you then, buddy, all right? Take care until then. Once again, congrats from all of us. Later.
So now that we know who Cobus is and what this video meant to me, I want to share it with you. Please go on and watch it in full at some point, either right now or after my video. It is timeless and it is worth your time. I have called it Internet Buried Treasure. It is a 16-year-old drum cover of a radio pop song that has been replaced by other radio pop songs a million times over. If you aren't already aware that this video exists, you are never going to come across it yourself. It is never going to show up on your feed or the front page of YouTube. There is simply too much content being made every single day that needs to be seen. This video has been left behind. That's what makes it buried. What makes it a treasure is the insane quality, not only of the video and the composition of it, but also of Cobus's attitude, his playing, his passion, and his desire to share his art with you, the viewer, to bond with you and your love of drumming, or Kelly Clarkson maybe, or whatever it was that brought you to his video. Not for ad revenue, not for clicks and view count, but because he wanted to share a part of himself with you. You can see his enthusiasm at every moment. You can almost hear him making decisions on the fly. He has practiced this song, of course. There are multiple takes stitched together, but it's because he has never played it the same way twice. And you can almost see it with your own eyes when he decides to switch grooves in the moment, when he instinctively feels a shift in dynamics is needed. You don't get that by just learning on paper. You need to let go. You need to sing. Every moment of this song is improved by his playing. It's like adding a harmony to your melody. The whole song feels more full by having him perform with it. His chops, the way he fills gaps, he pushes the song forward. He has control, not the other way around. And then we take a breath. Something big is coming. He winds up the tension. He builds the pressure. He hits a fever pitch and it all explodes into one of the coolest shots I have ever seen. When I saw this for the first time, my jaw hit the floor. It's just a pattern that he's repeating, but it feels like he has an extra set of arms. And the constant crash and clatter of cymbals sounds like the waves of the ocean washing back and forth. He had the foresight to hold it back too. What a goddamn genius. And he only showed us a glimpse of it at the end to not wear out the novelty. I still get chills watching it to this day. I have seen this video at this point honestly, probably 1,000 times. I know it's coming, and every time I feel giddy, like, oh God, here it comes. And I know in my heart that this is what music means to me. The passion, the push and pull of energy and tempo, not knowing what was coming until it happened. There are many other accomplished drummers on YouTube, many of whom I look up to, many of which I watch regularly. Many of them might even be more talented than Cobus in some ways, but there are none in my mind who sings the drums like Cobus does. And that is why I have never forgotten this video. That is why it pushed me to let go and sing for myself, not knowing what would come out of me. And being okay with that, because that's the only way you get something like this. Cobus's cover of My Life Would Suck Without You gets the top spot in Slappy Stash. There is nothing more to say about it than what I have already tried to convey. If you don't get why I'm putting it here, then unfortunately, I don't think you ever will. So, whatever you do, do it with passion. Make it real, make it yourself, and give it to the world. You won't know what will come out of you until it happens, but it will never happen if you don't do it with passion. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of Internet Buried Treasure. If you enjoyed your tour of the old internet, leave a tip for your guide in the form of a like. And if you'd like to visit again, be sure to hit subscribe and ding the bell. That way I know I've served you well. Slip slap. This has been SlappyPat.